What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 30, the big 3-0 of the Money Sauce podcast. It's just the sauce this week. We're going to get into a whole bunch of breaking-ish news, and I've found something a little interesting on the Facebook Memories page that I thought I'd share with everyone. Um, First thing is first, though, I wanted to share a little bit of interesting tidbit, maybe to me only. I know we mostly talk about hockey on the pod here, but this past weekend, for anyone that knows me, I'm a huge National Lacrosse League fan, and my Toronto Rock over the weekend picked up the NLL championship, their seventh NLL championship, which ties them for the most National Lacrosse League championships of all time. They're tied with the Buffalo Bandits at seven. It's been 15 years since the Rock have won a championship. It was a very exciting time over the weekend. Played a best of three series against the Halifax Thunderbirds. Toronto won the first game at home and the second game in Halifax. So congrats to the Rock. Um, this team is loaded with rookies, and it's not unrealistic to think, even as a fan of the team, you think probably being a bit biased, but I don't think it's unrealistic to think this team will be challenging for championships for a few years to come. And it's very exciting to see the Rock back into a position where they're one of the best in the league and fighting for championships. We've talked in the past about what's going on in Vancouver with the Whitecaps. Well, over the past week or so, I found a report on Three Down Nation, which is a great website for any news pertaining to the Canadian Football League. Um, the BC Lions are also in the midst of negotiating a new stadium lease over at BC Place Stadium. Maybe this is a sign that the powers to be over at BC Place Stadium need to start giving some more to these teams. From what I understand, there's no threat of the BC Lions moving. Vancouver, Montreal, and Toronto are of the three biggest cities in Canada, as we all know. These franchises for the CFL are important to be in these big cities. The Lions, within the past couple of years, solved some ownership issues, and they have a great owner now. And apparently, the president of the Lions has said everything is going well in terms of dealing with BC Place and getting the new lease sorted. But I'm sure they have some similar concerns to the Whitecaps where they need to see some more revenue avenues being opened up for them. And it's just interesting that through everything that the Whitecaps are going through, the Lions also seem to be in the midst of a lease negotiation. So another piece to the puzzle, as they say, going on in BC. I mentioned kind of in the open there that I came across something interesting on the Facebook Memories page. Back in the day when I was way more active on Facebook, I used to post ticket stubs back when ticket stubs were a thing of games that I went to. This is going back to the 2009 Stanley Cup playoffs. My uncle and I, Uncle Henry, fan of the show, um, he happened to decide to go down to Detroit to catch the Red Wings and the Anaheim Ducks. It was May 3rd, 2009, and we decided to head down for the game, and it turned into something I don't think we expected. So this was in the midst of a conference semifinal series. So the Anaheim Ducks, who were eighth place in the Western Conference that year, were facing Detroit, who were second place in the conference that year. To get to this series, the Ducks had eliminated the San Jose Sharks, and the Red Wings had eliminated the Columbus Blue Jackets. This was game two, so game one was on May 1st. The Red Wings won 3-2. And we showed up for this game, and in the first period, the Ducks took a 3-2 lead with goals from Ryan Getzlaf, Chris Pronger, and Ryan Carter. While on the Red Wings side, Brad Stewart and Mikael Samuelsson scored goals. In the second period, Ryan Carter of the Ducks scored nothing from the Red Wings, but in the third period, the Red Wings tied things up with Johan Franzen getting the goal, the Ducks not answering. And we went into overtime. We had one overtime. We had two overtimes. And about a minute into the first, or into the third, excuse me, overtime period, Todd Marchand of the Anaheim Ducks scored, giving the Ducks a 4-3 win, tying the series at 1-1. Jonas Hiller was in net for the Ducks that day. He got 62 shots against him with 59 saves. Chris Osgood played for the Red Wings in net. He had 46 shots with 42 saves. To this date, I believe this is still the longest hockey game I've ever been in attendance for, and definitely one of those cool memories. The I was there when that triple overtime hockey game happened. Anyways, just something interesting I came across the Facebook timeline and I thought I'd share. A player that Garrett and I have talked a lot about is Macklin Celebrini. Celebrini's over with Team Canada at the IIHF World Hockey Championships right now, and he was given the captaincy for Team Canada this year. Sidney Crosby, who also went over, he will be wearing the assistant captain instead of the captain, as has been kind of traditional for the past, oh, probably decade or so, whenever Crosby represents Canada. So maybe a bit of a changing of the guard here. Celebrini certainly showed up huge at the Olympics. He's been he is the franchise player for San Jose, and right now he's part of a Team Canada that's doing very well at the IIHF World Hockey Championships. The team has played three games. They're scheduled to play a fourth game tonight. They're 3-0, and they are facing off against Norway later today. And go Canada, go. And interesting to see that there might be a little bit of a changing of the guard on the international level here. We also talked last week about the Professional Women's Hockey League. They announced they'd be adding a team in Detroit, Hamilton, and Las Vegas. They've decided to round that off to an even number and add a fourth expansion team next year. And they are going to, speaking of Macklin Celebrini, San Jose. So the PWHL is growing by four teams this year. And it'll be interesting to see how the PWHL does in markets like San Jose and Las Vegas. They're both markets that have done well for the NHL, not traditional hockey markets, but will be interesting to see for sure. Speaking of those two markets, on it was on May 15th after the Las Vegas Knights played. The players that were available for media, which was not much, was Mitch Marner, Brett Howden, and Shea Theodore. Um, Marner and Howden were rushing to get through their media obligations, and they were said, "Hey, we have a bus in 10 minutes," and basically get us out of here. Well, as a result of not making themselves available for media, the NHL sanctioned some fines against the team. So head coach John Tortorella has been fined $10,000, and they have been also fined with a second round draft pick in the upcoming 2026 NHL draft. The Las Vegas Golden Knights appealed the fines levied to them by the NHL, but the fines will remain. And I guess the Knights now know they better make themselves ready for some media. In a news note that I don't think you see happen all that often, Sheldon Keefe, who was brought in kind of in the interim coaching kind of basis, he's going to return as the head coach of the New Jersey Devils after general manager, the poker playing, stock trading, Sonny Meta did an assessment of the organization, and he's decided, hey, I like Sheldon Keefe. I'm going to keep him on. So, um, good for Sheldon Keefe. I feel like this is not the typical story. Generally, what you hear is when a new GM comes in, he's gonna shake things up and hire his own guys and all that kind of stuff. So there we go. In other coaching news, the Oilers fired Chris Knobloch on Thursday. We know that the Oilers requested to the Golden Knights to speak to their former head coach, and that was blocked. At the time, Knobloch was still the head coach of the Oilers. So Garrett and I kind of said, hey, what are they doing here? But I guess now they've cleared the path for the search for a new head coach to go ahead. Speaking of Bruce Cassidy, the NHL's coaching association is backing him up. So, as we have talked about before, and as I just mentioned, he's was fired by the Golden Knights with 8 games left in the season. He's still got term remaining on his contract. So the rule is that the Golden Knights need to give him permission to speak to other teams, which they've denied requests to Edmonton and Los Angeles. The NHL Coaching Association has said they've been monitoring the situation closely. While they respect the league's rules and processes, it's their position that coaches who remain under contract but are no longer working for their club should not be prevented from pursuing other employment opportunities. And you know what? I think I agree with that. Um, on one hand, the idea of getting a paycheck while sitting at home and not working may sound nice, but if you want to get out there and get working and, not be bored at home or whatever the case may be, y- I don't think it's fair that a team kind of has this coach who could be out there doing other things, just sitting on the bench. Yeah, he has a contract. Yeah, that's what they're paying him for, but let the guy go and work. Other front office news this week. The Sedin twins are back in Vancouver. They are co-presidents of the Vancouver Canucks, Daniel and Henrik Sedin. And Ryan Johnston will be the general manager of the Vancouver Canucks going forward. So now we have the higher ups in the front office set in Vancouver for the rebuild. And everything kind of seems to be set in place for the new regime or whatever you want to call it in Vancouver. And they didn't waste any time because just 2 days ago, the Vancouver Canucks let Adam Foote go as the head coach. He was relieved of his duties. Um, he, he like it's kind of ridiculous. He had one season as the head coach of the Canucks. Yeah, he had an abysmal record. I mean, we all know the Canucks were like historically bad last year. Um, who knows? Hopefully, Adam Foote lands somewhere else. Um, yeah, it feels a little unfair, but I guess the Twins decided that they don't want Foote around as the coach, so the Vancouver Canucks are going to go in a bit of a different direction. And the Toronto Maple Leafs are the last one on the list. Yes, the Toronto Maple Leafs continue with their revamp of the front office, and they have mutually agreed to part ways with assistant GM Brandon Pridham and Derek Clancy. Um, you know what? I'm not surprised about Brandon Pridham. It was I I got the impression that he was probably one of the final candidates to take over as the GM, so he would have got that promotion internally. Um, he might not want to be around for what's going on. Um, he he probably has a little bit of a maybe I don't know if it's a sour taste in his mouth, but he's probably disappointed anyways that he is not part of or not given the opportunity to be the GM and part of the decision making process for the next however many years of whatever the Leafs are trying to do next. So it's yeah, it's going to be a just a crazy off season in Toronto. It already is, and I don't even know what's coming next anymore. Like it feels a little directionless, if that's even a word right now. Like I said, I understand Brandon Pridham probably wanting to move on. Um, but it's just a couple more names leaving the front office. I'm assuming they're not going to replace both guys again with the whole Rogers as a entire company trying to find ways to cut costs and all that kind of stuff. So if they're letting go of two assistant GMs, will they hire just one assistant GM? Will they even have an assistant GM? What's that gonna look like? Um, yeah, we'll continue to follow the Leafs because this thing is just it continues every week to have another little interesting note to it. Um, I don't remember if we mentioned it last week or not, but Shane Doan um, was also let go by the Leafs. Um, Shane Doan had the history of working with Shakea back in Arizona, and I'm wondering if there was a little bit of that behind it, but yeah, it continues to be like Shane Doan was around since 2023. He was a special advisor to Brad Treliving. So, you know, Brad Treliving's not there. He's not advising him anymore. Do they really need him anymore? But anyways, the Leafs just keep cleaning house. We'll just keep watching because it's just kind of a S show. And with that, I think we're caught up on the news of the week, and we'll be back again next week with more news of the Whitecaps, hopefully positive news on the Whitecaps, what's going on in the NHL, and anything else we find interesting. Thanks for tuning in again.
The Money Sauce Podcast with your hot saucy J and G.